Hi, this is Greg Valentine, and I want to talk cyber attacks with you. Today, I have my friend, Thomas Douglas from jmark.com, a friend and client who is getting his customers ready for the potential fallout of world tensions. And I'm coming to you from what looks like my bunker, so I think this is a really, really great atmosphere for today's conversation. So, Tom, welcome to the show.
Thanks for letting me be a part of it. Happy to share today.
Yeah, this is going to be really, really, really great. And so listen, everybody that's listening, if you wake up, if you jump into Gmail and you never think about whether your cell phone is going to work or not, then you need to listen to Tom today. First, Tom, before we get into like the craziness of the cyber attacks that are probably happening, that you're defending against, and that may happen because of the craziness of the world, tell us a little bit about your company and how the heck you got into cybersecurity.
Well, all great topics. So I actually came from the U.S. Navy, where I fell in love with technology. It was in that environment that I learned kind of the foundations, if you will, of managing computers and networks and kind of the basics, and fell in love with the idea that we could do more with technology than we could in many other avenues. And so I kind of went.
Well, so just stopping there for a second, Tom, like, without saying the exact year, like, what was a hot technology that got you really excited when you first got into it?
Actually, it was kind of it was databases.
Okay.
It really pulled me in. It was like understanding data, and what I learned over the years that I have a passion for loving the truth, and the right data can always lead you to the truth when you know what's going on. And so it was, how can I structure information in the right way so that it's very directive in the outcomes or the actions that you need to take.
That's amazing. So
Yeah.
you sort of, to have cut you off there. So you were talking about how you had gotten into it in the Navy, and then learned that it helped you find that truth. So then, what was the next step?
Well, I actually had a mentor in the Navy. I was going to stay in, loved it, worked with some amazing people, and my Navy chief said, I would recommend that you actually get out. You've got a special talent for tech and leadership, and I think you should go get in the private sector. He said, I actually think you can do more in the private sector and serving the country than you can in the Navy, because you've got the potential to create a bunch of jobs and influence a bunch of lives. And so he encouraged me to do that. Way more foresight than I ever thought. I was just like, I like geeky things, and so I had no idea what he was talking about. But obviously a very insightful guy, because I then got out of the Navy and joined our company as a level 1 engineer at JMark. The company was owned by a different individual, great technician, great just overall individual who understood both the software and the hardware infrastructure around it. Got into some financial challenges, some personal challenges, and years later, as I had worked my way up within the organization, I was given the opportunity to buy the company. And so we bought it with some partners, downsized it to 6 people, and then rebuilt it. And now we are about 115 people, and we manage over 20,000 devices around the country.
Wow, that's amazing. So on the flip side, the other question is, what is a cyber attack? What does that mean? And how can it cripple a business?
Yeah, well, they come in a lot of different forms. There's the things that you see on TV, the bad guys in front of the computers hacking into the networks and doing all of those kind of things. And that's real, but generally it starts with a simple phishing email. Hey, Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so, hey, I've got this cool offer for you. Or, a lot of people don't realize in today's world that the cyber industry, the bad guys, is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So they study businesses, they study organizations, they understand who is involved, they know who the CEO is, the president, the COO, the CFO, who the accounting people are. Like, they study these organizations through LinkedIn, they study them from websites, they study them through peer-to-peer environments, finding other organizations and intercepting emails, and they build structures, and they figure out who to send an email to within an organization through those things, and they guess at email naming conventions. So whether it's first initial last name, or just the first name, or whatever it may be, and they send a phishing email into those. And the goal is to get somebody to click on something that lets the bad guys in. So whether that's
isn't that what happened with like one of the big gas pipeline attacks in 2021? It just started with an employee clicking a link.
Yep. It is the human firewall, if you will, teaching people how to be aware of a phishing attack or a phishing email is one of the most important things that you can do to protect your business. Right on the heels of that is implementing two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication.
So before we get into that, like, so let's say I'm the attacker, and I send an email to you and you click on it. Now, okay, so you clicked on a link. Now, what does that actually allow me to do as the bad guy? And is there any way to circumvent that, or once that first domino falls, there's no way to stop the avalanche?
Yeah, great question. Well, one of my least favorite things to say in the world is it depends, but that's the answer. If you have a good security posture and you click the link, chances are it's not going to expose the organization. If you don't have a good security posture, then you're probably in trouble. So let's define what a good security posture is. First and foremost, you as an organization are doing a good job managing the patches and vulnerabilities within your environment. So what the bad guys are doing, how they get in, when you click on that link, you go to a website that exposes a vulnerability on your computer. So something you didn't patch made a hole. So when you click on the link, they're coming in and installing some malicious software or a plugin onto your computer. And once that's installed, then there's 1,000 things they can do, but most traditionally, they let it sit there. They start a scan of the environment, or they push into the environment some additional pieces of software that allow them to propagate that piece of software to other devices connected to the same network.
So with that is, if you don't have the right first defense and they get in, is there a second line of defense where people might have programs that go and scan for those malicious things that are in there on a regular basis? Yeah,
sure. I mean, there's the normal antivirus, anti-malware software. The problem with traditional software, anti-malware software, is that it's trying to match. So if this is going on, or if this program is installed, we know it's a virus, so I'm going to quarantine it or I'm going to shut it down. But the more advanced solutions that fall into what they call XDR are behavior-based. So instead of them having to know what the software is or the malicious software is, if it behaves in a certain way, they recognize it as malicious and they go shut it down or deal with it accordingly, create an alert so that IT can handle it.
Okay, so let's take a quick step back. This isn't something that just big companies like the gas pipeline company need to worry about, right? Is this something? Why is this something that small mom and pop locations, real estate companies with 7 brokers? Why does everybody need to be concerned about this?
Well, because a lot of what they're doing is a spray and pray methodology. So they're buying massive lists of email address and they're just shooting off these phishing attacks against anybody and everybody, and they don't care. So they can use your computer, even if they don't actually get in and as an example, launch ransomware in your environment. They can use your computer to send emails and to attack other computers out on the internet and become like a bot, if you will, which is essentially a slave to them. So they're going to use it in some form or another in your environment. Use your bandwidth, use it for bit mining, use it for drive storage, whatever it may be. So they could do that. But the biggest threat to a small and medium-sized business is ransomware. Far and away, if they can get into your environment and they can propagate their software around it, doesn't matter if you've got 20 computers on the network, they will shut you down, lock you out, and they'll ask for $1 million. And then there's a whole process that you have to go through to negotiate, to transfer funds, to go through all that. the average ransomware attack in today's world, which includes big and small businesses, runs around $4.5 million in total cost to an organization. So an SMB that's not on guard against that, let's cut that number in half. Let's say you have a $2 million expense. I don't know about you, but there's not very many small businesses of 20 to 30 employees that have $2 million that they're willing to part with or can even survive afterwards. So
yeah, I know some, 20 grand, that'd be like, so what are the big mistakes that companies are making into cybersecurity? So, they don't have that two-factor authentication. Like just go through, kind of name them, and then maybe in a brief line or two mention like, hey, here's the first step to fixing these.
Yeah, well, the first answer is they don't have a strategy. They don't have a plan. It's IT's problem. And I'm just going to assume that the IT guy that I trust, or this person who's doing it on the side, or because I'm doing the Windows updates or whatever it is, that I'm good to go. And that in today's world, it's a little bit like driving a car to 80,000 miles and never taking it in to get serviced. You have to have a strategy. You have to have a plan. And the only way you can protect any network against the cyber attacks is a multi-layered approach. So there's about 5 or so different things that you need to put in place to make sure that you're protected. One is, what you just mentioned, good password management, multi-factor authentication, you're patching like you're supposed to, the XDR, the antivirus, anti-malware software that's in there, the firewall that you're using needs to not be the cheap ones that you buy at Walmart or Best Buy or on Amazon. They need to be real firewalls that are interacting with the security operations center, and they're preventing you from going to the bad places on the internet where these malicious guys act and operate. So you turn the firewall with a capability that's called content management or content filtering, so that when you accidentally do click on the phishing email, it's going to catch it and be like, nope, this is a known bad site. You're not supposed to go here.
So let's unpack that for a second. Somebody's sitting there and thinking, going, hey, listen, I use my computer only for work. I'm not going to get sucked in by one of these Nigerian prince emails and, the equivalent of these, hacker emails. I don't go to any bad websites. I don't download anything. What do you say to that person?
Good luck. I mean, it's like saying I drive really safely and I'm never going to have a wreck. It really is the same. You can do everything right and still have a wreck because somebody else isn't paying attention. You can do everything right in technology and still get compromised. And so it's what measures are, you're wearing your seatbelt, you've got an airbag, you're looking both ways before you pull into an intersection. And those are layers of safety that you're putting in place for your own life. Technology is the same way. You start at the perimeter, you've got the content filter, the firewall capabilities, the vulnerability management, the XDR, anti-malware software. So all of these things add up to be and create the safety posture that you need. And it gets much more complicated the more sophisticated the business, in terms of recovery management and all of those kind of things.
Well, and so that leads to the scary question that, the mom and pop entrepreneur, the person with, 5, 10, 15 team members is sitting here and you go like, what you just listed sounds like, man, I'm going to be running my own NATO here. And this alone is going to take all the profits out of the business. So how do we address the concerns on the expense side? Sure. When, this is one of those things where if it works, you never know that you needed it.
Exactly right. It is hard. And the answer is a good, trusted, researched managed services company. If you're anywhere between, call it 5 employees inside your organization, or even less to some degree, but 5 employees to 250, it's almost impossible in today's world to justify having an in-house IT environment. You need to find a partner that knows what they're doing. They do it at scale, so they can bring the resources to the table. They can monitor your environment. They're committed to you and you're committed to them, which means that if there's a problem, they're committed to fixing it. And so they want to make sure that your environment is set up in a healthy and protected way. And so by paying a little bit more every single month for those services, you're making sure that you don't write the really big checks when things go to hell.
Yeah, and so now we flip to the question that I often think about, because I have so many clients in this position where it's like, well, I just work at home, and all my team members all around the world work at home. Yep. And we don't have this office running on this big servers and all that sort of stuff. So how relevant is what you're saying to me?
Yeah, well, you don't have a great big server. If you're managing your mail lists online and through a lot of those things, it's still relevant. You don't necessarily have to have active management, but you want a real firewall. You want some advice on where to find and where to go to do those, and put those things in place, even in a home business, because at the end of the day, a ransomware attack, whether it's one computer or hundreds of computers, takes a business down for about 40 days. Some of the data suggests longer than that. Now, if it's literally a single computer and you can wipe and reload and get started the next day and it's not a big deal, you can manage it accordingly. But if you've got proprietary data, financial information, intellectual property that you've written, all of those things, and you don't have a good backup strategy, that becomes really, really expensive, because it is your revenue source. So my recommendation is, even if you're disparate, that you put some solution in place. With cloud technologies and capabilities today, our clients are dispersed all over the country. We have many people that work from home. We have many people that work in offices. We can manage the security in all places. So it's about finding the partner in the right solution that can complement your business structure.
Okay, so this is a bit of a personal question. So I'm in the market for a new computer, mm-hmm. And when most people think of buying a new computer, they think about watching movies on it or whatever. But if I'm thinking of it, so if I'm Tom Douglas going to buy a new computer for personal use, and knowing what but not necessarily you being in the business that you are, you're an entrepreneur, you have all this knowledge, and you're like, I need to upgrade my computer, but I have this online business, I sell stuff online or virtual or whatever. What do you look for, and what are you going to add on to the MacBook or the Windows, book that, or, whatever the heck they call it, the PC or whatever. Yeah. What are you going to look for?
The business class, so you like buying a car, like buying anything else, there's the different levels of computers that you can buy. The MacBooks generally are really good. You definitely get the extended warranties on them. And then the first thing that you do is you put the antivirus, anti-malware software on it, and whatever solution that you're going to use to back it up. And that could be something as simple as using Dropbox, Box.net, Google Drive, OneDrive from Microsoft. On my computer, as an example, I store nothing in the My Documents or the Documents locations. Everything goes into a cloud synced location. So my computer can die today, and I can boot up my spare computer, and it will sync, and I'll have access to absolutely everything that I operate on. So you just retrain yourself that the computer itself is nothing but an instrument to gain access to the data that you need.
Okay, great. And then what firewall are you going to go with?
Cisco Meraki is our preference. And they've got some small business, like 5-user style devices. Fortinet makes a good small business SMB based firewall. They're an investment, but for the protections and the capabilities that they provide, it's good. And the side benefit, if you operate at home and you have kids, it'll give you some tools to monitor what's going on the whole network. So how much time is being spent on Netflix, how much time is being spent on games. If your kids tried to go to a website that they shouldn't be clicking on or going to, it'll get blocked and you'll get a report. So, I mean, there's ancillary benefits to it as well.
Got it. And then what about a VPN?
Yeah.
Do you have any particular ones that you use?
Well, because we're a Cisco house, we use the Cisco VPN, which is good for, I'd say, kind of that 15, 20 users and up from that environment. But beyond that, there's some good third-party apps for the smaller kind of work from home environments. I'm not familiar with the best ones to use for that. I'm sure that there's a lot of articles about the best in the market.
And then what are common mistakes that most people make with their personal computing use that put them at real risk? And aside from visiting websites with a .ru probably is a bad idea.
Yeah.
And then obviously clicking on the links and stuff, responding to the Nigerian prince request for money. What else am I making mistakes as a personal computer user?
Connecting to public Wi-Fi. It's really common. People do it all the time.
Including like a Starbucks Wi-Fi?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you have to do it, you instantly connect to the VPN. You never want to be on public Wi-Fi because, I mean, it's so easy to compromise the computer, to capture all the information that's being transferred in and out of that device. I mean, it's literally, I've seen stories, and you can hop on YouTube and do a search for how fast can you hack in a public Wi-Fi, and you can see hackers that'll sit in an environment. It'll take them 30 seconds, 2 minutes, and they'll have full control of a computer or a phone.
Wow. Speaking of phones, is there anything that we haven't talked about that someone might apply to their iPhone that they use heavily with business?
Mm-hmm.
What would I need to think about there?
Yeah, I use the Trend Micro antivirus on my phone. It's the same concepts, making sure that even though multi-factor authentication is a real pain for email, turn it on, use it, make sure that you're putting all the, the 6-digit passcodes and the Face ID and configuring it for sure. Because if you lose it, you want to make sure that you can wipe it. We use Microsoft Intune for mobile device management. You don't have to be a big business to do that, but if you configure it with your email in that capability, this is the Microsoft suite. You're a Google guy, I know, but on the Microsoft side, you can wipe all of the email and the data off of it remotely. That is in the Intune environment, i.e., your email or OneDrive or whatever you may use. So figuring out the best solution for you as it relates to whether it's kind of the Microsoft suite or the Google suite, giving yourself a get out of jail free card, if you will, in terms of wiping your phone.
Got it. Do you think I'm insane for using Gmail?
For me, yeah. A lot of people do it, but our business is designed around supporting companies kind of between 20 users and 250 users. And in the Microsoft suite and everything that it brings to the table, it gives us a lot more capability to provide control than the Google suite does. But there's guys that do what I do that prefer Google that would tell you just the opposite. So
really? Okay.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's managed service providers who focus on the Google suite. There's just not as many, but they're definitely there.
Okay. So let's talk about the cyber attacks that maybe some of the ones that you're working against right now, or what these might look like in the future. Like, are there becoming more and more of these right now?
Yeah, the trend is crazy. I mean, so 2019, at the end of 2019, going into 2020 or 2020, like right after the elections and all of that, it literally doubled. The spike was crazy how much it went up in just that short period of time. And we're seeing a fallout of, thousands and thousands of attacks per day. I could bring up some statistics to share with you that you can post in the comments or something down below that just show you the number of attacks that are occurring on a daily basis. But the numbers are skyrocketing.
And so what happens, and we talked about if Gmail and Microsoft Office 365 are under attack from, maybe there's some major cyber attack. What the heck, what do people do if those things are gone for days or weeks?
That's exactly what we're tabletopping right now is, if the bad guys are going to launch, Russia specifically under the current circumstances, but maybe it's them, maybe it's not. If the bad guys are going to launch a cyber attack, they're going to try to do like a denial of service or something similar to shut down the major players on the internet, which is Microsoft and Google. And if they can shut those down, then communications, is going to be inhibited across many organizations for an extended period of time. And then, you take it further. And most businesses in today's world are relying on some sort of a voice over IP style environment for their phone systems. So it could be not only is your email down, but your voice services. So 1-800-CALL-JMARC is down for an extended period of time, and you can't call from that number or email from your primary email to stay in touch with your employees or your customers. Yeah, so we're tabletopping that right now, developing protocols, and we're encouraging businesses to plan on or to create plans on how first they would communicate with their team in the event that they couldn't have email or text messaging or cell phone service. I mean, if you think about what would be the most catastrophic thing that somebody could do in the United States today, it would be in terms of short of dropping bombs, in economic impact, shut down the cell towers, shut down the internet. Everything is compromised at that point. Every business has trouble operating, and the economic impacts would be massive. So we're encouraging our clients to, how do you set up a phone tree or a communication methodology, assuming that the internet and cell phones are not available? And then the worst case scenario is throw power on top of it.
What do you mean by that? Like generators? Or?
Yeah, well, lose power for 2 weeks.
I see what you mean.
Large parts of the United States, you shut down the power grid, shut down the cell towers. You
have to be prepared for that, is what you help your clients do.
Yes. Got
it. What happens if the major social networks are down? Aside from, people actually are more productive, and I joke on that. What happens if those things go down? Like, how do those companies, what do they do? And same with the email that we just talked about. Like, let's say these denial of service attacks come through from hackers. How do these companies respond? Like, what goes on inside those organizations to get things back up?
Well, it obviously is dependent upon the kinds of attacks that are launched. When you look at Facebook, the biggest carriers, Instagram, Twitter, they've got redundant data centers on top of redundant data centers on top of redundant data centers located all over the country, or all over the world rather. And so it's very possible that if there's an attack in the United States, Facebook can fire up a US instance, if you will, in some other country, in Australia or whatever. It's possible that they can do that. We may just not be able to get there. Their networks are isolated from the internet, so they may be operational. It's just that we can't communicate with them if the core internet is down.
Got it. So we've talked a lot about some, really kind of scary situations. What are some positive and optimistic things that you see in cybersecurity defense? We're talking about all these hackers, and it makes them sound, omnipotent, that they can take everybody down and ruin our lives. But obviously, there's companies like yours out there working. What else would you say to kind of finish this off on a positive note?
Yeah, great question. The positive side is all the bad things that have occurred have brought to the forefront that every small business owner, medium-sized business owner, large business needs to make this a more important part of their strategy. And they're putting these defenses in place, where more and more businesses are protected against these kinds of attacks by far now than there was, a year and a half, 2 years ago. Because the threats got so bad that they had to respond and do something. And so it doesn't mean that it's impossible, but when you get these layers of protection in place, the likelihood of a successful attack against your business is reduced substantially. And so, it's neat to see business owners saying, okay, it stinks, I've got to spend the money, but it's a manageable investment, and it provides safety for my business, no different than the insurance that they have to buy, whether it's for your house, a car, or the business itself.
Yeah, so they sleep well at night.
Yep.
Yeah, Tom, man, this has been really amazingly terrifying and helpful at the same time. Really appreciate the work that you and your team are out there doing. How can business owners contact you for help on this component of your business?
Yeah, jmarc.com. There's a dozen different ways to get a hold of us there. We're on all the big social media platforms as well. But website is the easiest way. And anybody can send me an email, and myself or my team will help deal with that to tom@jmark.com.
Awesome. Awesome. And then on a side note, we're going to have you back on the show in a couple of months when you release your new business growth book, because you're very passionate about leadership and organization of businesses. Can you tell us just a little bit more about Adapt or Die?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've learned over the years that there's a certain set of methodologies that businesses need to have in place in order to scale. And man, we learned it the hard way. We spent years and years figuring everything not to do so that we could figure out what we should do. And so I wanted to share that, to pay it forward, if you will, hoping that other business owners don't have to skin their knees as many times as we did in figuring those things out. And so Adapt or Die teaches the methodology that I describe as the algorithm of success, which is the components that you need to have lined up inside your business so that you can run successfully, that you can serve people. And when you put people at the center of your business and you do a good job taking care of them, that propagates into success for everybody. And so it's creating that alignment and enthusiasm for serving your team and your customers in a very positive way.
That's absolutely fantastic. So looking forward to having you back on the show in a few months. And right now I've got a little bit of time. I'm going to go start reading the pre-publication copy that you sent me. So thanks again, Tom. Really appreciate it. Always great chatting with you. And everybody listening, it's jmark.com. If you have a business, as Tom says, doing with 5 to 250 employees, this is an issue that you need to take seriously. And it's better off to sleep well at night knowing that a person like Tom and his team have your back. So thanks everybody from Craig's bunker here, which is a cybersecurity proof. This is another episode of Early to Rise Radio, and we look forward to chatting with you again soon.
Thanks very much. Appreciate the chance to be on. Thanks. See you back.